Hello and welcome to Talking Politics with Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news that's making the headlines in domestic politics this week. India is being hit by a huge, massive second wave of COVID-19 infections and rising mortality rates at a time when all sorts of medical equipment and resources are running short. Even as all of us are still running from pillar to post, trying to get help to as many people as possible to deal with this massive outbreak in the face of increasing shortage of oxygen, hospital beds, ICU beds, blood plasma, injections, etc., etc., it was suggested that a mass vaccination program open to a large number of age groups was the only way out of this tunnel. While the government did announce that it was opening up vaccinations for all above the age of 18 from May 1st onwards, it was followed by subsequent announcements by vaccine manufacturing companies of a differential price structure. That is, the rate at which the vaccines would be sold to the central government was going to be different from the rate at which it was going to be sold to state governments and private entities. So while the Covishield vaccine was going to be sold to the central government for rupees 150 a dose, it was going to be sold to the state government for rupees 400 a dose and to private entities at rupees 600 a dose. The Indian company of Bharat Biotech, which has developed and is manufacturing the Covaxin, also in a release on Saturday evening said that it was offering a differential pricing. It would be offering its vaccine to state governments for procurement at rupees 600 and to the private sector at rupees 1200. Now, all of this has understandably led to a political uproar. The central government on its part is saying that it will continue to supply vaccines procured by it, which is 50% of all vaccines procured. That much of the 50% of all vaccines will be reserved for central government procurement, and that will be distributed to state governments for free. But the point remains that state governments will end up having to pay more. Opposition parties have rightly raised the issue that state governments, which are already cash-strapped at the moment because of very slow economic activity following lockdowns and last year's first wave of the pandemic, can hardly afford currently in their fiscal situation to be spending more than the central government to procure vaccines at a time when it's a once-in-a-century pandemic. The second wave is worse than the first, and the ramping up of vaccination seems to be the only way out. While many state governments have declared that they would be providing vaccines free to the people through the public health system, it will still mean that they would be subsidizing far more than the central government is doing in procurement. Well, part of my education has been in public health, and I can't help but add a little editorial note, which, as I said in the last episode, I usually avoid adding since I have been a reporter for over 2 decades. But for whatever it's worth, here it goes. When ramping up vaccinations is being seen as one of the main ways out of this morass of rising mortality and infection rates, to have differential pricing will create wrong incentives and will hurt, in the long and the short run, the urgent need for mass vaccination. Thank you for being with me today. I'll see you next week.